On the regenerative journey, our goal is to nurture and facilitate the lives and journeys of all our followers, which is why we've teamed up with resource consulting service RCS, Australia's leading provider of education and advisory services in regenerative agriculture. RCS trains and consults across the ag sector, from individuals and families through to corporates and even government, empowering people to grow productive and profitable businesses in diverse and, importantly, healthy landscapes. They understand that the future of healthy families, resilient communities and regenerative farming lies in holistic education. Over the last 15 years, they've played an integral role in my own regenerative journey, and I have a lot to thank RCS for, and I'm one of 7,500 others who have attended their farming and grazing for profit course. I don't know where I'd actually be, and I certainly wouldn't be this far down my own regenerative journey if I hadn't completed a significant amount of training with the RCS team. I can't recommend more highly RCS to anyone looking to start their regenerative journey in a supportive and proven environment. Terry McCosker and your team, you absolutely rock. And we're also absolutely stoked to be collaborating with them now. For my listeners only, we're offering a 10% discount on all farming and grazing for profit schools and grazing clinics in Australia this year. If you add this to the early bird rate of a 7-day school, you could get a whopping $1,000 off the standard price. Simply add the code CharlieRCS, that's CharlieRCS, that's one word, at the checkout to get your concession. How awesome is that? Now head to the show notes to find out more. As Hamish Mackay says, and I love the way he says it, what we do is we bring the future into the present. We imagine that, we create an impulse for the future and we bring it towards us into the present. And when we bring it into the present like that, you can't help but create the circumstances for it to take us then or create that future that we want.
That was Charlie Arnott, and you're listening to The Regenerative Journey. From wherever we are, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia, recognising their continuing connection to this land, its waterways, the stars in the skies since time immemorial. We pay our respects to the elders, knowledge holders, and to all the generations of First Nations peoples who have nurtured their unceded sovereign lands for over 80,000 years and continue to do so today.
G'day, I'm your host Charlie Arnott, an 8th generational Australian regenerative farmer. And in this podcast series, I'll be diving deep and exploring my guests' unique perspectives on the world so you can apply their experience and knowledge to cultivate your own transition to a more regenerative way of life.
Welcome to The Regenerative Journey with your host Charlie Arnott.
Welcome everyone to the first episode of season 5 of the Regenerative Journey. I won't go through all the detail, but for those watching on YouTube on the machine, you'll see that I'm in a room. This is my 3rd venue. Actually, it's probably my 4th venue. I've tried to do this afternoon, and something I wasn't sure if it was. I was trying to be given a sign that I wasn't prepared for this, which I do feel a little underprepared. Whether it was the degrees of difficulty I was experiencing with wind outside and everyone seemed to want to mow their lawns at the same time in the afternoon, and airplanes above, and then other household noise was making me think that maybe this is not the time to be doing it. Anyway, stiff shit, I pushed on and I thought, no, I've even got ink on the chair. I'm going to get in big trouble there. I don't think that stuff comes out of white fabric. Anyway, my point being, I've pushed on. I trust that you find some value in this opening, as is becoming a bit of a habit, a tradition, if I can call it that yet, in season 5 of the Regenerative Journey. This is my opener. So here we go. And really the first point of business, sounds like a board meeting. I hope it's not that boring. The first point to note is really just a welcome to you all. We're into our 5th season. Very excited about that. We are not yet 2 years old. I think May 2019. No, hang on. May 20 was our first episode, and an enormous amount has happened in that not quite 2 years. What's it? 20 months, or just shy of that. And I'm going to try and stop saying too much as well. Anyone can keep me up the bum when I say that too much. So I'm going to make a real effort not to say that word anymore, if I can stay conscious and aware of that. So season 5 is, for me, no more or less special than the others, especially in that it is actually the 5th one. We've progressed. We're still here. We still think that it's a valuable contribution to society, to culture, helping put the culture back into agriculture. And what we've done is lined up a number of guests that we think are reflective of bit of old, bit of new. I'm not talking ages. I'm talking more kind of contemporary topics. There it is. I said that word. Contemporary topics that are as, I guess, the principles of regenerative agriculture. And again, just to stress, this podcast season show is not just about regenerative agriculture or sustainable agriculture or working with nature. This is about the way that, and it's hard to escape, the connection between food, farming, environment, and human health, if they're the sort of the 4 pillars that we look at. And did it then. The 4 pillars, if we as humans are to be healthy, we need to be eating healthy food. So there's 2 pillars. There's a lot more to human health than just food, of course. But as far as farming goes, as far as nutrition, and as far as farmers' contribution to that, one of the farmers' contributions is actually obviously the food. To do that, we need to grow food in an environment that is healthy. So that means that we are in whether it's indirectly, it's intentional or not, to grow beautiful, clean, nutritious, healthy food, that can only be done in environments that are clean and nutritious themselves and fertile and vital and as natural as possible. Everyone has their own, obviously, definition of what natural is, and so do we. So, and we're not certainly experts. I've never purported to be an expert on anything. I am good at connecting people. I love speaking with people and helping them tell their stories, which again, what season 5 is all about. We've got some wonderful guests coming up. I've already interviewed Nat Kelly. For those who don't know Nat, she's an Australian-born of Peruvian ancestry actress who is based in LA. She's been on many shows, Vampire Diaries, Dynasty, and in the new season of Dynasty, and also she was in Fast and Furious. I'm sorry, I nearly forgot that. Fast and Furious. In the latest one, I think it was the one of the last ones. She was so refreshing speaking with Nat. I won't bang on all day about it, but it was really refreshing to a smart, intelligent woman who has absolute sincerity in what she talks about and reverence for her history, the history of her people and the continent, and her very sincere approach to life and wanting to know more and wanting to help. So don't miss that one. That'll be up front in season 5. And it also excuse again, in finding this venue and getting away from mowers and crows and traffic, there's still just going to be a little bit of traffic where I am. So please forgive me for that background noise. Reese, help me if you can extract some of that. I'm not sure how possible that is. So we've got Terry McCosker, who I've been chasing. Terry, I've chased you for years now. Actually, we've had quite a few really good yarns, but this is the first official interview with Terry for the podcast show. And I have to just say a big shout out to RCS, who are coming on board as collaborators in season 5. And it's been a wonderful opportunity to work with them and support them, because for those who don't know, and I'll remind those who do, it was RCS way back when, 15, 16 years ago. And James Barnett reminded me of this today. James works with RCS in New South Wales, and that first ad in the Burra News that was profiting from the drought, that took me by surprise. I was very curious, thought it was a joke, went along, changed my life. So thank you, RCS. Really excited about the partnership we have formed for Series 5, and can't wait to meet. I've met him a couple of times. Old Terry, no, I shouldn't say old. Sorry, Terry. Old as in you are one of the godfathers of this movement in Australia, not age, because you're quite ageless, I have to say, without pumping up your tyres too much. Look forward to that one with Terry McCosker. And it was, beautiful, lovely to spend time with Terry. Libby Weaver's someone else. And I guess I'm just stepping through some of these guests quickly. I won't bang on too much about them all. But I guess I'm just emphasising that there is, as the other seasons have rolled out, a range of different guests, of different discussions with people. And the reason being, and we've sort of, we've stood back and looked at the previous season and other seasons and gone, who's our audience? What do they want to hear? What do we want? What stories do we want to tell? What do we think is really important? And what kept on coming up for us as a team, and clearly from our listeners, that you want stories from all kinds of connections and parts of the industry. And when I say industry, I'm talking about life. I'm talking about food and farming and health. I mean, all those things are interconnected and are not too far away from anything else you choose to name in life, whether it's fitness, whether it's your business acumen, whether it's the business you're in and your behaviour, it's your family relationships. It's just like 1 degree of separation from any of those 4 pillars. Food, obviously produced by farmers, in an environment for the health of humans. And so Libby Weaver is amazing, Dr. Libby Weaver, and she is on board as well. Took a while to track Libby down because she is ultra busy, published so many beautiful, wonderful books, and what an honour to be speaking with Libby. And she's all about health, about nutrition, about lifestyle, about healthy living, and all the different parts of that. She's just amazing. Arna Rubenstein, who I met some years ago, and Arna's wonderful because, for many reasons, a good guy, really good guy, and he's a doctor, and he also, one of his big things is rites of passage, and it's becoming more and more of a thing, and I'm glad it is because I think one of the things that the youth of today, if I can sound like an old man, are struggling with is their place, their purpose. As they grow, as they find their place in the world and their contribution, and that's probably a word they don't hear often enough, or probably they're not exposed to enough, is that, living a purposeful life, I believe needs to have a contribution as part of that. Otherwise, it's really just about yourself, which is not, altogether bad, but I think there's always room for contributing to your community. Actually, it's essential. So Arna runs programs, rites of passage programs, and he's just fantastic. So really look forward to chatting with Arna up here in Byron Bay, which is where I am at now. That's probably why everyone's mowing their lawns, because it's going to rain soon. They're just trying to get on top of it before it grows another foot in 24 hours. John Grant. John, I tell you what, except for Walter Yenner, who I just absolutely love, John Grant at Lismore University. He is Southern Cross University at Lismore. Has such a lovely, wonderful way of making soil interesting, and the way his passion for it. He's a teacher up at Lismore Uni there. And I just love the way he turns it into such palatable conversation and information. So John Grant, look out. And I don't know if John gets enough airplay. I don't know. I trust he does in the future because he's such a wonderful contribution to make to agriculture generally. Jade Miles, who wrote a book last year, Future Steading. I'm going to catch up with her in Victoria when I'm down there shortly. Is that a plane? Bloody planes. I guess the good news is they're flying. I'll get to that later on. I'm going to try and chat. So looking forward to speaking with Jade down there and hopefully on farm and have the chat and just see exactly what they're up to down there. Amazing little farm doing all sorts of wonderful food related and education related stuff. That's what the book's all about, future steading, homesteading for the future. Angelica Arnott, who is my wife, I am really looking forward to speaking with her. I do every day. However, I haven't yet. So when you hear this, I'm not sure whether I've done that if I may well have already done it and not survived. I'm sure I will. I'm actually looking forward to that chat because she's wonderful, and we have beautiful conversations, and sometimes I think, gee whiz, that was worthy of the ears of others, just because we go deep, we honest and vulnerable, and all those wonderful things. So I'll track her down, and we'll have the chat with her as well. And look, I'm also thinking about having a crack at the virtual concept of podcasting. Most people do. The ones I follow are virtual, and they're absolutely wonderful. I'm not saying there's any, the quality is really good. I find the face-to-face interviews, the rapport, and just that level of comfort and really understanding who they are and where they're comfortable and what environment, and sort of creating an environment for them to open up and express themselves is I guess the mission I have with my guests when I interview people. And so how one does that, or how I would do that effectively over a Zoom, over a virtual kind of situation, I'm yet to do. From an interview point of view, from a regenerative journey interview point of view, I've done plenty of Zooms and interviewed people in that way, in a less probably formal way, for those who are listening and then listening to a recording, that sort of thing. So, but I'm going to give it a crack. I've got so many fine, wonderful people who are just not in this country. That a couple of years ago I had all the intentions of interviewing. Thinking about going overseas, back to Europe, to US, do some touring and do some workshops and just suss out what's going on over there. But that's sort of kind of a little challenging at the moment for a number of reasons. So it is people like Gabe Brown, Zach Bush, Joel Sullivan again, if I can track him down. Who else is in the States? Dave Asprey I'd actually like to interview. I think it'd be awesome. Even Joe Rogan, how cool would that be to interview him? There's lots out there. And what I'm going to do is ask you as listeners, as supporters of the regenerative journey, feel free to get in touch, direct message me on social media, get to our website, charliearnott.com.au, and leave a message. And if there's anyone internationally, locally, nationally, whatever, that you would love for me to interview, do not resist the urge to send us a note and tell us. We've got quite an extensive list. But again, what I'm really keen about, especially in season 5 and ongoing, is I want to make sure we're telling the stories of the people you want to hear. And that's really important to us. So if you actually let us know who you want us to speak with, and if we get hold of them and they're willing to be interrogated, we would love to provide you with their stories. Slipping into the future, just after the warm-up of who you're going to listen to for season 5, or some of them at least. What is the future? What is that going to hold? I don't know. I guess that's the beauty of the future. As Hamish Mackay says, and I love the way he says it, what we do is we bring the future into the present. We imagine that, we create an impulse for the future and we bring it towards us into the present. And when we bring it into the present like that, you can't help but create the circumstances for it to take us then, or create that future that we want. So that's obviously our, what's in our control, that old chestnut, what is in our control. It's actually probably quite interesting, what we might think is out of our control, may well be in our control, not just in our control, but in our influence. It's in our circle of influence somehow. And I think, practicing the habit, the ritual of intention, and thinking about your future and planning that way can indeed have some interesting positive consequences. So what does our future look like? I don't know. Well, say globally, nationally, this whole COVID thing is, I hope, or dare I say, not coming to an end. I don't think it's ever going to end. I think sensibilities will come into play. I think that, the logic or practical nature of some of the the government overreach and the what they've implemented, will the light will be shined on that and be considered more and more, be considered by more and more as having been over cautious, overreach, and inappropriate. Really, I think, because as I said back a couple of season openers, must have been maybe season 2, I think it was. Must have been pretty early on in that whole thing. I did it again. Might have been the second one. If our and I'll say it again, I think it's worth saying because it came up on something the other day on social media the other day, and it's creeping. It's starting to just creep into mainstream media a little bit. Very little whiffs of it is, if the whole idea of this government reaction, regulation, mandates, all of that, was to save lives. Like if that was the primary goal of this, save lives, then that I don't know that they achieved that. In gross numbers, in total. People may want to challenge me. I'm not really, not that I'm up for the challenge, but this is not necessarily a debate. I'm not putting this out there to debate it. It's a view that you can take or leave. That if one considers all of the repercussions, the consequences, dare I say the unintended but also not considered consequences of, family, domestic violence, depression, suicide, illnesses, alcoholism. I'm not going to rattle off the stats because someone's putting out, that's bloody wrong. However, I'm game enough to say that, suicide rates have risen. The number of people that are pitching up to Alcoholics Anonymous, that are having trouble with the bottle. Businesses going under. It's just, and that does lead to lives being lost. That's just the number of deaths from the mandates, the regulations put in place, directly. And then, you've got the whole consideration of the consequences of, dare I say, the jab and, all of that. And I'm not going to go into all that. There's plenty of information here and there and everywhere that people can. And this is not about changing people's minds either, just quietly. I don't have these opinions. I don't talk about them, and I guess I have the privilege of being able to use this platform to say that on it. And this is not why I have this platform or I do interviews to sneak my opinions in. I trust people are interested in my opinion when I have one. But this is not the point of this episode. This is not a debate. This is my view, and everyone's view is valid. And this happens to be mine. And I just think that, over time, I trust that people will look back and go, you know what, I don't know we had that quite right. I don't know the government did put the right measures in place or I don't even know if there were right measures. I don't even think that there was, I think everything they did was pretty much wrong. Again, people might want to debate that, but I'm not up for that. It's my opinion. Get your own podcast show if you want to have your own opinions about stuff. And I encourage people to do that. I'm not being a smart ass by saying that. And I'd have to say, that might have been my third or so, or fourth. I haven't been counting too much. I have to say this, because I'm pleased. I'm not relieved. I'm just pleased that the overwhelming feedback we get here at the Regenerative Journey, and also via our socials about, I guess, our advocacy on various things, is support and relief that we are saying things that we're saying, especially with the Parents with Questions organisation, and similar ones that are, there are some that are probably, I wouldn't say extreme, because this environment, this time in our lives actually does call for extreme things. I'm not talking about extreme violence, by the way, just views, and that's fine. Everyone's got them. I think that there is a time for people to stand up and fight for their rights and their sovereignty and so on. And I think that's a healthy thing. And I think in some ways, or in many ways, And again, there may be people in the world of regenerative farming who are, find this hard to swallow or don't agree, and that's fine. I think there's a lot of parallels with maintaining one's sovereignty of body and mind and spirit and family and place with, the principles of regenerative agriculture. I think so anyway. Again, that's probably going to stir up a few hornet's nests, but that's fine. That's just my view, that they go hand in hand, I think. And I don't think it's about, how far should I go into this? A lot of people bang on about, they do things for the greater good. And I, in some ways, appreciate that that's their view. I always appreciate that's their view. I don't know that I necessarily agree that is necessarily a good thing, especially if I think a lot of people don't know. Well, I do know a lot of people are coerced into getting what they got. Otherwise, they lose their jobs. I just think that's wrong. I hope we're coming to an end to that. I trust that we're getting whiffs of that kind of mandating might be coming to an end. I don't know. Then you hear about stories about these big camps being built to put people into to quarantine.
Looking for more information to assist your regenerative journey? Come join Charlie and his guests around the kitchen table, an online community of supporters with exclusive access to the regenerative journey interview transcripts, live online Q&A sessions, a chance to engage with other like-minded people and more. Go to www.charliearnott.com.au/the kitchen table, and we look forward to sharing a yarn with you. Now let's get back to this week's episode.
I'm actually quite positive about the future and very optimistic. I think that what's happened, what has naturally happened, and through what I think is a really unnatural kind of a scenario, is people have found their tribe. People have sort of they're finding their tribe, whatever that tribe is. And I think that in itself is a positive thing. Whether you're on this side of the fence or that side of the fence, finding your people, I think, is a really important thing. What this will just punch the mic. What this has done is certainly divided people, and that's unfortunate. It was always going to. At the same time, I think that what it has emphasised is the importance of community and connection. And if we can start mending relationships and seeing people, seeing them eye to eye, and just loving people and accepting them, accepting their decisions. I think that's a really positive thing, and that's what I'm certainly about. Everyone has their own view, and that's absolutely fine. I just think that there's an opportunity to mend a lot of relationships, mend a lot of, rebuild a few bridges. I'll probably burn a few, perhaps in my time. I'm sure, the last couple of years at least. But I'm interested in the future. And stepping into the future and bringing that we have created in our minds, and doing that hand in hand with people, because that's what it's about. It's about community. But I think that's enough of that one. That's probably further than I wanted to go, but I think that the essence of what I wanted to say was there. That all again relates back to, as I was saying a bit earlier on, about the pillars, or what I call pillars, principles. Back to soil. Soil's a big thing. Natural capital is a big thing. The Maya field days at Wilmot that were in late February, all about natural capital. Well, that was the theme, certainly, and I think that's become a big thing. That's interesting. I don't know. I'm still not sitting on the fence. I'm still stepping into that reasonably tentatively, making myself aware of opportunities. What are the options? Who's selling the snake oil? Because there's probably a few of them around too. Just getting a whiff. Maybe the same ones who were or similar, I should say, to selling water. Not really an interest, a sincere interest in the well-being of farmers and the water supply in the Murray-Darling, for instance, but just seeing a red-hot opportunity to make a whole lot of money. And that's fine, that's fair, they can do that. But I guess that is now, I think, translating into the carbon market, which, again, I'm no expert on. I know a lot of people who you probably call are experts and are doing projects, and we're involved with one that at some point in this year I'm sure we'll be allowed to talk about. But I think it's actually really exciting. I think there's the sort of the common, up to this point, the generic thinking about it's all about carbon and making money out of carbon. I think that's challenging. I think that the bigger picture of natural capital is the thing to focus on, and carbon is part of that. How one makes money from that, how one does that with integrity, and potentially doesn't make that the primary reason to be managing landscape. I think it's important that that's not the primary reason, because then there's a whole lot of things are going to fall off the bus at that time. You're not going to be thinking about necessarily the people in the business or the local community or how you're producing food in that environment. If it's just about whacking more carbon in the ground and making some money out of it, I just don't know that's necessarily the best way to go about it, or tapping into the carbon market. But again, I'm no expert. It's just my feeling. As I said before, the first carbon meeting I went to was probably back in 2005, 6 or 7. No, it would have been 6 or 7, many years ago, and I'm really not much clearer. And I don't think it's because I'm a muppet and don't understand it. It's just I just don't know that it has developed more. So you could probably argue it's a little more complicated or complex. At the same time, there are elements of it that are still, I think, pretty much unclear to everyone. But I'm keen to learn. I'm curious and I'm keen to learn, which I think we all need to be, or could be, if we have that inclination. Where are we up to now? I think, so look, that's going to be a bit of a focus for us, is community, building a community of like-minded people. We have some plans to do that in a way that brings together and collaborates and partners with some of the key industry players in Australia and globally, is the plan. In this space, in regenerative food and farming and lifestyle, bring collaborating with those people to sort of bring the best to the table for the community of listeners, community of farmers, of eaters, of feeders, and giving them somewhere to convene and commune and learn and develop, and essentially giving them an opportunity to progress, develop, grow, and be inspired to keep on their regenerative journey, or even start the regenerative journey. A lot of people getting onto us, inspired, haven't bought land yet. Some of them have bought land, just gone and done it, and they're just keen to learn. I think it's a wonderful situation that we're in right now, that people can, and it's interesting. I didn't grow up in the city and do a non-farming kind of thing and touch base with farms or nature every now and again, and then suddenly want to be part of it. I don't know what it's like to be a person that happens to. I think it's fascinating. I mean, I was born into farming, and I just sort of, it's part of my everyday. But for someone to not be connected for many years, or ever really, and in some cases, not very much, to then get to a point in their life that it gets back to that push and pull, doesn't it, I think? Pushed away from urban living, 9 to 5, whatever, 3 hours in a car a day, whatever the pushes are, is one thing. And that's quite scary, running away from something and not knowing where you're going. But the lovely, lovely thing is that, more education, more advocacy, the more exposure, the more connection people can have, whether it's in Harris Farm with their It's All in the Soil campaign and identifying the producers in store that are doing wonderful things, or whether it's advocacy work the MLA are doing, whether it's stuff that, kids see at the Easter show. There's so many different groups and organisations, individuals out there who are talking about this, and it's almost, you can't escape it anymore. And I think that's a wonderful thing. And if that gives people, if that's pulling people into rural communities, pulling them into the farmers markets, pulling them into, just researching and looking, nutrition, pulling them into a Cindy O'Meara or a Libby Weaver online course, pulling them into even things like, Nico Plowman meditation, that's all connected. That's all connected, and I think that's just a wonderful thing. And again, looking back at the guests from the Regenerative Journey over the last 4 seasons, you're such a broad, and it was on purpose to identify the depth and breadth of people that we feel are important in this space and have a story to tell, and identifying the interconnectivity of it all, the synergies between it all. So I hope that, that may or may not be one of the reasons why you listen to this show. It's probably not to hear me waffle on with crows and airplanes in the background, so apologies for all that. Getting a bit more relaxed here, lying back in the chair. That was the 5th or 6th one, I trust. The last bit before I wrap up, because I'm going to keep it a bit shorter than my previous ones. Our Bionic Workshops, and I've had some feedback from a couple of people, not many, but worth noting, because we certainly take note of all that feedback, that, there'd been an emphasis on biodynamics on quite a few of the podcasts. And I guess I don't make any apologies for that. It is one of our core principles and practices at Hannah Minnow, and we teach 2-day workshops, and yes, it's an opportunity to advertise and promote them. But we see that as a really important part of anyone's regenerative journey, in my view, and also it's one of the many tools available to people if they are interested in growing better food and managing the landscape better. So again, I make no apologies mentioning that. I don't know if I mention it too much, because there's actually not many of the people I interview are biodynamic practitioners. There's a few who've been to our course. Hamish Mackay, obviously the interview, I think it was season 2. But I do drop it in, and again, it's because I think it's worthwhile. It's a wonderful practice, a wonderful philosophy, full of intention, and full of goodwill. So that's why we drop it in there. So I'm going to drop a few more dates, maybe not necessarily specific dates, but certainly go to our website charliearnott.com.au to check out the events page, because we will be in South Australia in early May. We're looking to be in Queensland in June, July, somewhere around there. By the time you hear this, we would have been in Victoria. We had to cancel Tasmania, which was in early March. And we are going to be back in Tassie in spring, we reckon. You Taswegians, let us in. Also, plenty more at Hannah Minnow, at our place at Boorowa, and also anywhere else in New South Wales. At Byron Bay, we'll be back there. But Queensland, we're really looking forward to getting up there. We haven't been there since June last year. And so many excitable farmers and graziers up there who want to know more and get exposed to biodynamics. So we're red hot keen to get up there to join all you guys up in Queensland, guys and gals up there in Queensland. Of course, we have and we bang on about it every episode for good reason. We have a group of very supportive, our favourite people in the world, and I say that with all sincerity. They choose to support us every month through Patreon to help support the regenerative journey. And those who choose to support us in that way get transcripts of every episode, bonus content. We're going to have more bonus comment and bonus content for those guys and girls in Patreon. Which is basically extra questions I have from my guests and other extra interviews. We have our webinars every month with future and previous guests, and it is awesome. And I got to say, for those who aren't in there, jump in there, pay your $10 a month. It's a couple of coffees and it's probably what nowadays it's probably like a really crappy, tomato cheese sandwich and an average coffee a month to be part of that group. Be part of that, and that for us is the beginnings of a community that we are growing, and they're the founders of that. The guys and the girls have been with us, and it's wonderful. And they are creating their own futures, having their own regenerative journeys, and I think it's really commendable that they do that. So jump on the website charliearnott.com.au. You'll get a little thing that'll pop up. Jump on there and make a decision as to whether you want to support us or not. These webcasts, what are they? They're interviews. Podcasts are free, obviously. But it does, it's not free to produce them. And we we would really appreciate your support to help, make sure we get past season 5. We've got some wonderful partnerships being created, one with RCS for season 5, and we'd like to make sure that it's not just, we don't terminate season 5, because I am ready and raring to go. So many lovely stories to tell, so many opinions to share, so many regenerative journeys to help as listeners, to help them along their way. And that is the thing, and it sometimes brings me nearly to tears when I read some of the feedback we get, that it's just absolutely beautiful, the impact that we are having. And not just us, there's some amazing podcasts, more and more, that are helping people on their own journey. What I am really proud about, I have to say, is I keep hearing and seeing written the words regenerative journey. Now, I don't, that's the name of the podcast. It's not something that I own. However, I think that the concept of the regenerative journey, which I'm really proud to be promoting, you start reading and seeing it, hearing it everywhere, and that's why we do it. We're doing this to help you. If you're an eater, a feeder, or a farmer, it doesn't matter. It's all connected, and I think that's, I'm really, really pleased and really proud to be rolling out season 5. We've got some wonderful guests. We've got our fantastic team. We've got Fiona and Reese and Zoe and my good wife Angelica and all our partners and collaborators. We're going to have a cracking good season 5, and I can't wait to roll out the next and the subsequent interviews of the regenerative journey for your ears and the world. Talk to you soon. Looking forward to it. And next week on the regenerative journey, I'm thrilled to announce that I spoke with Nat Kelly, the Peruvian Australian actress who was fortunately back in Australia for a couple of weeks, and I caught up with her at Hannah Minnow. It was a lovely chat, and I hope you enjoy next week's episode of the regenerative journey with Nat Kelly as much as I did.
This podcast is produced by Rhys Jones at Jaeger Media. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to subscribe, share, rate and review. For more episode information, please head over to www.charliearnott.com.au.